Although things probably will never be perfect overall, there is something that is so much better for the Nintendo Switch 2 than it ever was before for Nintendo for the last, I would probably say, 20 years when it comes to support of the system, not only from third-party developers, but also from within and their first-party developers. And it's something that we're seeing being talked about at various different moments with the Nintendo Switch 2. Just even before the system has launched, you look at the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct and what was announced there. Stuff like Cyberpunk 2077 obviously was never coming to the Nintendo Switch 1. You're talking about games like Borderlands 4, the new 007 game. There's the Hitman game that's going to be there at launch. Split Fiction. There are a number of titles. Even recently, Nintendo talked about the Final Fantasy VII remake. Well, more like Square Enix talked about it, and they talked about the whole series coming over to Nintendo Switch 2, the Final Fantasy VII Remake series. It was said in the new creator's voice vision, and there's been a lot of excitement around the potential new titles that could be coming to Nintendo Switch 2, whether it's a day and date type of game or ported later down the line, because of the improved specs and the situation that Nintendo finds themselves in compared to every other Nintendo system that we've got for the last 20 years or so. And I think some people don't realize, especially when I see people online talking about third party or talking about first party, I don't think people realize how bad it was before at times when it comes to the Nintendo platforms. When it comes to even just Nintendo Switch, I asked a question when I was in a space on Twitter with other people. Well, what were the launch games for the Nintendo Switch 1? They couldn't even tell me what the launch games were outside The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And that's essentially it. That's the reason why they don't remember. It's a completely different scenario, and things are looking like a complete 180 compared to that and what we had and the Nintendo Switch 2. Even if you want to go back another generation with the Nintendo Wii U, yeah, a nice slate of games that came out at launch, but after that, it was pretty much a ghost land, and it was definitely not fun. You want to see Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, everyone do well, get jobs, make games, have tons of competition and content. That's exactly what you want to see for the industry to grow and get better. And when things are lagging behind, it's just not fun at all for everyone. Still can be great games, but just not as fun. Then if you're looking at it from the Nintendo Switch 2 perspective, you're looking at not only big Nintendo Switch 2 edition games, which are going to fix many of the problems that these games had originally on the Nintendo Switch 1 with frame rate, hitches, problems, graphics, resolution, whatever the case is, those superficial problems that you can see on the outside of game structure that you might like or dislike, but just these problems that are clearly identifiable. It's going to fix a lot of those, but it's going to breathe new life into going back into your backlog, whether you're playing a free update game, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. We also got some game share stuff that's probably happening, Super Mario Odyssey. There's some good stuff to go back and play depending on how good the update is going to be, but also having some of these games tailor-made and actually built for the Nintendo Switch 2 with updated resolutions and frame rates that you couldn't do on the Switch 1, and also adding in features and content. So it's exciting to me to go back and say, okay, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, two of the best games released for the Nintendo Switch 1, but obviously had some frame rate issues here and there, and that's going to be no more. Also, super fast loading, looks a lot better, play it anywhere that you want. That's going to be super appealing to so many people, and it's way better than what Nintendo's ever done in the past, because Nintendo's never actually done that overall when it comes down to a previous game. They've never enhanced it to this degree without it being completely remade or re-released in that type of way as a remake or something. Now this is just an update to a game, and it's going to be right there at launch, plus once again free updates. So before in the past, we would play the game exactly like how it was. It was just standard backwards compatibility, but now there's some updates to it on top of the actual third-party support coming as well, because the system is much better spec'd than what we've seen in competition to what's on the market compared to what Nintendo's done in the past with previous home consoles and handhelds. And even if you're looking at it from like the Wii U's perspective, and when it launched, when it comes to the PS3 and the Xbox 360, developers were so set in their ways in terms of how those systems operated, the Wii U just never really had a chance after that unless Nintendo blew it up with the sales, and that never happened due to a variety of reasons, from the marketing to the problems that they had there, and the first party games just weren't big enough and weren't good enough for get people excited to pick up the Nintendo Wii U. So you're looking at with the Nintendo Switch and you're saying, wait a minute, there's Mario Kart World from day one overall. You're going to have Donkey Kong the next month. Obviously, Metroid Prime 4 is going to be coming as well. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, a new Kirby Air Riders on top of the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of games that's going to supplement the other titles. it's going to be great for the second half of the year, the mid to second half of the year for Nintendo, and it's just better than what we've seen before compared to especially last generation with the Nintendo Switch. And it's like, here's The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, they did come with other games like Mario Kart 8 and Splatoon and ARMS and other stuff, but man, it took some time to get some of those big third-party games, and even when they did come, wasn't quite anywhere near what we saw with the other platforms. Whereas this time we have a little bit better of a system in order to run some of these games. And I think things like DLSS to help out in the future with some of the bigger games is going to be clutch in terms of retaining some of that support, along with making sure that the Nintendo Switch 2 sells incredibly well to entice developers to develop specifically for it. And if you're talking about Japan, that's going to be pretty much domination when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, considering what we've seen so far with the pre-orders. And overall, if you're looking at pre-orders for worldwide base, estimates are looking at around 6 to 8 million within the first month or so, depending on the pre-order numbers, plus new stock coming in at the time. So I think it's going to be a pretty interesting and very fun thing for Nintendo fans this time around with the content that is coming out. But what's also going to be fun this time around is all those people that not subscribe to the channel hitting that subscribe button. So if you're not subbed, hit that sub button, hit that like button, and click that notification bell to get my vids as soon as they drop. Now let's talk a little bit more about some of these big third-party games, because Cyberpunk 2077, it is getting a real Nintendo Switch 2 cartridge, physical, 64 gigabytes, everything on the card, ready to go, plug in and play. And the developers have talked about why that was important to do overall for the system. So in a recent interview with The Game Business, they had this to say. Mr. Rossner from CD Projekt Red, quote, "We try to look at those things as players ourselves, and that was a big learning from the original Switch. The internal storage was way lower than it is now. A game like The Witcher 3 would take up 80% of your internal memory if you don't have an external memory card. But a plug and play experience is really a cool thing. You've already seen from the original Switch that Nintendo players are quite receptive to that. It was a goal that we wanted to achieve fairly early on." Now, Rossner also talked about how they could have followed other third-party developers with the key card route that doesn't have the actual game on the card, and it's essentially a key to download it digitally, and it's tied to that card instead of your account like a digital game. He talked about that, but felt that, look, physical's still here. It's going to be here, and we're going to get it done right if we're going to do this. Quote, "It's not a matter of getting away with something. Nintendo at physical retail is still strong, and retail is, in general, not going anywhere. I don't think we'll soon experience a reality where we're just having all games digital. But again, it's especially important for the Nintendo audience. We maybe could have got away with it, but is there a point? The right thing to do was to have it out on the cartridge with a plug and play experience. Do not underestimate the physical edition. It's not going anywhere, and Nintendo players are very appreciative of physical editions that are done right." So I have to 100% agree with this. If you're looking at what's happening on Walmart, for example, that was one of the best places to pre-order a Nintendo Switch 2. The best seamless experience was there. So I'm guessing that many people, and Walmart probably had tons of Nintendo Switch 2 stock overall, considering how many people got theirs from Walmart. And if people are buying the Nintendo Switch 2 at Walmart, they're probably buying games there as well. And if you look at the best sellers, Cyberpunk 2077 is the only big game outside of Street Fighter 6 that's in the top sellers for games. All the keycard games, once again, outside of Street Fighter 6, are not in the best sellers. It's all Nintendo first-party games. All the big first-party games that Nintendo has out, even the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of games. Whereas, you know, you can clearly just take your Nintendo Switch 1 version if you want, or buy that, and then just upgrade it from there. But even those are selling better than all of the game keycard games. Only Street Fighter's in there. Cyberpunk is the other third-party game as well. And Street Fighter, it's one of those games to where, yeah, you probably want to have digital just because it's a multiplayer game that you're going to go back to after a year or 2 years or some odd time. So multiplayer games are easier when you need to be connected online to even play them or enjoy them at its fullest. But a game like Cyberpunk, obviously it's a single-player game. That's something that you probably just want to be able to plug in and play, just like many of the other games that people are excited about and buying when it comes to the top sellers on Walmart. So I have to agree with this here. I'm really hoping that Square Enix gets the picture, especially after that awesome creator's voice where they talked about Final Fantasy VII Remake series. I think that if they can get Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade on a 64 gigabyte cartridge and follow what CD Projekt Red is doing here, that would be awesome, because we've seen other developers not opt for that 64 gigabyte cartridge overall. and it's just definitely not as good if we had the option for it. Like game key cards, they're whatever, and there are some benefits to them over a full digital version of a game, considering you can sell them and you can trade them and do whatever, unlike a digital version that's tied to your account. But I still think that having a plug and play experience, especially for single player games, is definitely a great thing overall. And CD Projekt Red got it right with Cyberpunk 2077. I think that's one of the reasons why it's up among the best sellers, along with other Nintendo first party games, and all the other game key card games are just not there. Now, and I do think that that's more going to be for the casual or light consumer. I think they're not going to care about it overall. But for the core gamers that are buying the Nintendo Switch 2 at the beginning, let it be known to developers out there that it's important to get a real physical version out. So I'm hoping that FF7 Remake Intergrade, and I'm hoping that other big games also do what Cyberpunk is doing, because yes, players will respond and buy the physical edition of the game. All right, let's get to the next topic here, guys, and that is Trails in the Sky. We've got a confirmed release date for this game, Trails in the Sky First Chapter, officially launching on September 19th. This game is officially coming to the PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, and PC via Steam September 19th. And the big thing here with this is that it's worldwide. For the first time, from what I can remember, for the first time ever, I think, this game is going to be, when it comes to the Legend of Heroes series from Falcom, a worldwide release. So that is awesome to see, September 19th. But the one thing that I really wanted to see that didn't happen here was that there was no Nintendo Switch 2 edition announced yet, or no Nintendo Switch 2 version announced yet. I'll take anyone that I can get, whether it's an upgrade from the Nintendo Switch 1, where they do the whole Guardians of Azuma thing, where they have the Switch 1 and Switch 2 on a cartridge, or if they're just going to do a digital version of the game. I want to see this on the Nintendo Switch 2. Obviously, the PlayStation 5 version would be great as well in terms of frame rate and resolution and what they're doing. This is more of a AA type of game, so I don't know how the Nintendo Switch 1 version will stack up, but I mean, if the Switch 1 version is good, I don't mind going with that. But I mean, you might miss out on the 60 frames per second, because they haven't done 60 on anything when it comes to Nintendo Switch 1 with most of their games. And the game looks pretty good from what they've shown the Switch version running. Like, whenever they showed it at the Nintendo Direct in the trailers, it was confirmed for Switch first, and it was Switch footage. Then they said, okay, it's coming over to PC and the PlayStation 5. So far from what they've shown, the Switch 1 footage looks great. But it would be awesome if they can do a Nintendo Switch 2 version of this and get it up to closer to what we would see with the PlayStation 5 overall. I am wondering, when it comes down to this, no PlayStation 4 version of the game, is that going to end up being a little bit of a mistake, considering that there's still a lot of people buying PlayStation 4 games in Japan, and this is going to be a bigger seller in Japan? But maybe they think that most of that PS4 base has already migrated over to the Nintendo Switch and not the PlayStation 5, and the people who want the PlayStation 5 version can just get that, and people who usually buy on PS4 have migrated over to Nintendo Switch. So maybe that might be the case, and the reasoning why there is no PlayStation 4 version. But I'm looking forward to seeing what's happening here. Also could be cost related if you don't want to do both of them and you want to have the newest in terms of PS5 and the features that it offers, so like haptics, for example. So I can see a couple of reasons why maybe that decision was made, but either way, I need to see another decision to see a Nintendo Switch 2 version of this. If not, I'll probably pick it up on PlayStation 5, and I'll see what I can get for digital wise on the Nintendo Switch 1. But let's see what they have. It's coming out September, so there still are a number of months left for something like that to be announced at a Nintendo Direct or at some other thing. So I'm guessing that Nintendo Direct time, because they announced this originally at a Nintendo Direct, it was just like in a like brief sizzle reel, the Japanese Nintendo Direct. So I'm guessing that there might be something else that they have for us with this game now that there's a worldwide release and they can talk about it at a Nintendo Direct. So we'll see what happens here with the Nintendo Switch 2 edition of the game, but September 19th for Trails in the Sky First Chapter. This is the best place to start too, guys. If you want to get into the Trails series, this is the first one when it comes to canon-wise in the story, so this is the one to pick up. All right, and for the last story, we're going to discuss Split Fiction. This game is also coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 at launch, June 5th, but it's already topped 4 million in sales. So that's a pretty big milestone for this type of game. And there's a lot of talk about games like Expedition 33, the double A-ish, right under triple A or lowercase triple A type of game with a smaller tight-knit studio that really locks in and creates something for players out there, because they're all hardcore gamers and looking at it from that perspective without necessarily the top thing being, okay, we got to make the most money or something like that, or microtransactions or all this other stuff. So I think that's where these games are coming from. Stuff like Split Fiction and Expedition 33 have been huge successes, selling millions of copies even at a lower price range at the $50, and people are really receptive to that. So I think that there's going to be a rise in games like Split Fiction in terms of the budget and the style, and games like Expedition 33, because they're seeing huge success, selling millions of copies. What you usually see for bigger AAA games, they're getting that done right here, right now, with lower budgets and a tight-knit team. So I'm very excited for Split Fiction coming to the Nintendo Switch 2. It's one of the biggest games on the platform, if not the biggest game, at 71 gigabytes. So it's not even a key card, man. It is a download code in a box if you want a physical, and I'm using air quotes on that, or retail version of the game. So I'll probably just go with the digital version. I love Hazelight. They do great work, and the fact that they've done so well, that's awesome. Josef Fares and his team is already hard at work on the next game that they're working on. So yeah, I think that Split Fiction is going to do well on the Nintendo Switch. And remember, if you buy one copy, you can share it with someone else, no problem, to play co-op via Game Share. They have that feature built in, just like it works on the Xbox and PlayStation system. So definitely a very good thing overall. But what are your thoughts when it comes to everything we talked about here with the Nintendo Switch 2 and what's happening in terms of the system itself and how much better it is compared to how we had it before? Cyberpunk 2077 physical editions, what's happening with Square Enix, Trails in the Sky? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.